yeah. Kingdom citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah. Kingdom citizen. Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. David D. King, Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin, and I just want to say blessings to everybody and happy birthday to my beautiful wife, Rosie. It's her birthday today. We just got back in the house, and so we had a beautiful time for her birthday. And so I just wanted to say again, happy birthday to my help meet. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But let me bring in, hold on, baby girl. Now, I have my daughter in, and she know I'm finna do something, so you know how they are. So let's bring in at this time for the thousands that's watching all over the world. They are the tag team constitutional queens. Here they are, Sarah, aka Abigail.
Rumble.
And her sidekick, Mercy, aka Ambra.
This is getting more senior sidekick, by the way.
This is getting more exciting every time.
Right? Well, he's all dressed up in a suit, and I feel
I know
underdressed.
Well, I didn't have time to undress and get comfortable. Okay.
Okay, yeah, you're just showing us up, Dr. King.
No, never that.
I put a pretty necklace on. Does that count?
Yes. If I had my way, I'd be in some jeans, a t-shirt, and and just be chilling and everything.
Well, I'll basically extra comfort it up for you because I'm in PJ pants that match my outfit.
By the way, I love your t-shirt.
My body, my choice. Yeah.
This is going to be a night, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yes, it will.
So as we begin, though, I just want to remind everybody, oh, wrong one. You can vote for me later for mayor. But right now, if you have not received your copy, you need to get your copy. Why it's important to stay in the middle from a kingdom perspective. Very powerful, short book. You could call it 414-676-0842. That's 414-676-0842. And we're still looking for volunteers for Kingdom Ecclesia Academy. We will be working the Brewers game, all 81 games. If you can't work 81 games, at least work one. Please give us a call if you're willing to volunteer at 414-676-0842. That's 414-676-0842 or 414-899-2688. That's 414-899-2688. And if you want to learn more about being healthy and getting paid at the same time, please call me at 414-676-0842. That's 414-676-0842. So we just thank you guys. And one more thing. There you go. Campaign co-parenting. If you are having problems co-parenting and you want some help, please give us a call at 414-585-9511. Kingdom Ecclesia is willing to assist and help you with your co-parenting. Maybe you both need counseling. To remember, it's all about the child. So give us a call at 414-585-9511. And that is all of the announcements. Hold on. Just give me 1 second while when you have a child in the room, you have to fix some things. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to let them say hi for a second.
We get to say hi. Hi,
Oh,
Amber.
we
How are
do
you
that,
doing?
not the kids. I'm doing pretty good. I will be honest. I am 100% lost track of time and that it was Saturday.
Yep.
And so, when you're like in full on presentation mode, I'm probably gonna mute myself because
Eat your dinner. Yeah, that's fine.
poor planning on my part.
No
Lots of
worries.
work getting done though, and
Yeah.
I do want to put a disclaimer out that anyone who has currently reached out to me and is waiting, or is one of my mentor David's people that are waiting to hear back from him, or I've reached out to and you're waiting to hear back from me too, know that I've taken on like a lot of the people that his wife has sent over to me because he had a heart attack earlier last month. And so he's alive, he's on the up and up, definitely not like fully in the clear, but he's on the up and up. And I have a cat who's gonna try to intrude.
I've been waiting with bated breath every time you update and everything because I'm like, he's a freedom fighter. We can't lose him.
Right, exactly. So
I know I obviously his family wants to keep him around and all that stuff, but we're a small but strong group right now. Let's keep the momentum going.
yeah,
So.
keep it going for a bit. Yeah, exactly. So
Now, before I start tagging everybody in, I do want to say some things before we get started.
Oh no.
what did we do now?
I showed him a bunch of books before the show.
Wait, something you did.
Yeah, it's probably something I did.
Trust me, it's definitely something she did.
Oh.
So let's begin.
Yes. I showed him thriftbooks.com.
I still have not gone on there yet. I need to. Wait,
I'll send you a link.
No, I don't need to.
I'll send you a link. You can use it whenever you want.
You don't want that link. Trust me.
Hey, I'm sort of an affiliate. It gives me free books too.
I know.
Oh, really? They have an affiliate program? Okay, then I'm totally game.
Kind of, sort of. Like I'm not sure. There's like the referral program, and you get so many points and stuff that add up to your rewards points and get free books. So yeah.
Okay, well, it's
look at all these books you got. I'm so excited.
I love it. The myth of separation.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds like the name of your book. So, the Federalist Papers. Yep. How many books did you get? And I want to know what the total was. Spiritual heritage. Okay.
And it keeps coming. America's history in black and white.
Thank you.
I have, I think, all of those except for maybe one. So yeah.
So here, sit down, baby girl, because Daddy doing the show now. You want to get on the show? If you don't, sit back.
You can commentate on the state constitution. That's good.
Here, sit right here.
We need the next generation educating us.
Come here. Right here. Come on, be with Daddy.
So I am going to start a little bit not off track, but just as a transition into the next part of the Constitution. I'm going to read a little bit of something first. Whenever we get into it.
I love it when you start that way. So
it goes so well. Oh my gosh, this last week with my depth program, I have just been diving into these essays and things, and it's just like, oh, it is spot on. So, am I doing it now? Okay. So I'm reading a guy called Frederick Bastiat. He was born in the 1800s, and he wrote a lot of essays on economics and freedom and all that stuff. He was this collection. Yeah. Anyway,
isn't he the one that wrote a book or something called like The Law or something like that?
Actually, it's so funny you mention it because I was going to read from The Law.
Yes, I have not read that one yet. So awesome.
Yes. No, it is it's a short essay. You can actually get it for free, Dr. King. You don't even have to buy the book. You can just go online and find it in a PDF format. And actually, I might actually have it saved so I could just send it to you if you
Well,
want.
I will say this. Out of all those books I showed, I only spent $45 for all those books.
Mm-hmm. Woo!
Yeah.
Air high five. Yes.
Doesn't that make you feel better?
No, because it makes you buy more.
Yeah, I know.
but I did do that. And so I am ready to get busy because I know we got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
And I know how we get, especially when we start talking pine cone and all that.
Oh,
So,
I'm trying to avoid that this time, Dr. King.
I don't know. You be trying to get even with me, so I don't know.
I thought she did. Didn't you last time?
She attacked me again last time.
I was being kind, just introducing you to a great opportunity.
Yes, it's called read.
It cuts into his Uber time or whatever it is.
Probably.
And, so at this time, we're going to turn it over to Madam Abigail so she can do her thing.
Okay, so and I will post the link. Let's see. After I'm done reading this, maybe I'll look for it and you guys can talk out what I read, and then I'll post the link for the law and for his other one, which is called That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Unseen, which deals with the consequences of the choices we make, right? We have the seen things, but then what are all of the unseen consequences? So both excellent, and they're not very long. I mean, they're really good reads. So, all right. So in the law, Frederick Bastiat talks about what the purpose of the law is. It's a negative force. It is not a positive force because it doesn't give us anything. It protects us from things. So it protects us from the violation of our human rights, right? It takes let me see, the exact word is, the negative concept of law is so true that the statement, the purpose of the law is to cause justice to reign, is not actually rigorously accurate. It ought to be stated that the purpose of the law is to prevent injustice from reigning. So it's, yeah. In fact, it is injustice instead of justice that has an existence of its own. Justice is achieved only when injustice is absent. So, I mean, how
darkness is just the absence of light.
Exactly. So yeah, so isn't that interesting? We look at the law as this kind of addition, right? It's this it brings justice, but it's so not true, because the purpose of the law is not to take something from us, or not to give us something, but to prevent things from occurring, namely injustice. So he talks about the proper function of the law, and he says that basically you have three choices. The choice of the use of the law can be either limited plunder, universal plunder, or no plunder. and he says the law can only follow those three. You cannot have it any other way. You can't have a combination of them or anything like that. And the concept of plunder is basically thievery, right? And what we have right now in our representatives, in our legislative bodies and things like that, is a lot of plunder, right? Taxation and all of these, property taxes and regulations and all of these things that the law is adding to, right, to take away freedom instead of preventing injustice. They're using legalized plunder, basically legalized thievery. So he says that you have only those three options. You could have, a limited amount of plunder, limited amount of thievery in certain areas. You could have universal, where that's where you get your socialist societies, right? Where everything is the government's, and then they kind of trickle it down if they choose to. Or you could have the no plunder option, which is the one that he fights adamantly for. And think about him. He was right during the French Revolution. And so this was a huge deal for France. They were trying to figure out how to create this new system of governance. And, they'd thrown away the monarchies, they'd thrown away all of these tyrannies, but then they became a tyranny in and of themselves, because they slipped into socialism. They slipped into this idea that everybody is a collective and there's no individual freedoms. We all we all just have to basically do what the government says, and the government was the elites who were in charge, which was exactly what they had just fought against. So yeah. So anyway, so what he basically says is, can the law, which necessarily requires the use of force, and this is an interesting thing, the law requires force to prevent injustice, right? That is their job, and so therefore it is a force method. So can you have freedom when the law is being used to enforce enforce regulations over what light bulbs you use, or taxation of your property and all of those things? No, they're using legal but not lawful force. So anything he says, rationally, can the law which necessarily requires the use of force rationally be used for anything except protecting the rights of everyone? I defy anyone to extend it beyond this purpose without perverting it and consequently turning might against right. This is the most fatal and most illogical social perversion that can be possibly imagined. It must be admitted that the true solution, so long searched for in the area of social relationships, is contained in these simple words: law is organized justice. Now, remember, we talked about it's actually has to do more with preventing injustices, but that's basically where that comes down to. So yeah, so he goes into more of this, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'll post the rest of it and you can read through it, but I've literally like just highlighted and and underlined a whole bunch of things like that. But the idea is that socialism it has a seductive bent to it. It pulls you in with promises of free education and free healthcare and equal rights for all, and all of this, all of us at the same level, on the same plane, all starting up at the same, and redistributing the wealth so everybody gets a piece of the pie. The problem is the pie is only so big. And usually what happens is the elites take the main part of the pie and then trickle down whatever the crumbs are left, right? And so, but we see only that first phase of socialism where they promise all of these great things. And it's an immoral form of the law. So anyway, so I just wanted to go into that because we're going to be getting into, obviously talking about the rights still in the articles, but as we get further into the Wisconsin Constitution, I want us to start really examining the Constitution and its amendments through that lens. Is this article, does it prevent injustice or does it prevent freedom, right? And so really examining it from that perspective. So, excuse me. So let's go into, actually, did anybody have Dr. King or Amber, did you guys have anything you wanted to add to that or discuss? Okay, so I will try to, at some point a little bit later, then I will try to link those.
All I'm saying is I'm listening.
Good.
And I'm not buying no books.
I told you, those were free. I will give you the free copies. But if you want a handy little reference guide, it's got it all in here. You can just buy it.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. But I'll probably end up buying it. But,
probably.
But I just want people to know I be joking when I'm saying I ain't gonna buy nothing because I love learning. So
yes.
I would love to see his library. I have a feeling it's a beautiful one. Actually, both of your guys's.
Amber, you got to come down one of these days and you can browse and I'll let you borrow whatever you want.
Actually, mine's is all over the place.
Oh, mine is too.
Yeah.
It's not in one place.
Every time I build a new bookcase or buy a new bookcase, I need another one.
Some of them I have to say, wait a minute, did I buy that book? When did I buy that book? Because it's so many, but it's all about empowering. So that's why I do it.
It is. Yeah. And I will try not to mention too much the other book I'm reading, which is called The Right and Wrong of Compulsion by the State, which goes right along with the law and all of that stuff. So yeah. Anyway.
The one thing I want to say about what you just shared is this is why it's so important to not only study our founders and framers and the original intent, but also go back to the philosophers. I mean, we don't even have to go all the way back to Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, that stuff. Like when was he, when did he write the law?
That was in the 1840s, I believe. 1830s, 1840s. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So, I mean, the more we study, though, these philosophers and how they understand the construct of being human and interacting with other humans,
Yeah.
the more we, it just builds our knowledge base to have a wider, more, broad perspective on things.
Mhm.
And it prevents us from, having a closed mind and a single-minded, focus and perspective.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
helps us take others
Yeah,
into
it really challenges you to think outside of the box on things because, when I grew up in a where it was mostly like we really focused on religious texts and things that were Bible related, but we missed a lot because there are competing worldviews, and if we don't know these competing worldviews, then we cannot know how to fight against them, how to argue for our own worldview, right? We can get a very what's the word, in a bubble, kind of bubble wrap ourselves and isolate ourselves from the world, and that's not what God called us to as kingdom citizens. That
Mhm.
verse that they take out of context so often is, we're in the world but not of it, and that basically means, oh, we gotta hide our kids and protect. Like, I've heard so many homeschool parents say they took their kids out of public school, or they didn't public school them at all because they were trying to protect their kids from the world, and it's like, no, you're trying to prepare them for the world that they're going to be entering as adults, right?
And that is the biggest problem that I do have with I'm gonna mute that after. That's one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of the private schools and the private colleges.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna name names because they're, religious ones.
Yep.
But I see people coming out of those environments so bubble wrapped that they
Mhm.
do not understand how the real world works. And I was so blessed that my parents saw that early
Give
on
you that opportunity
because
to,
I
yeah.
would I would go to the youth conference that's up in the Twin Cities when
Yeah.
I was in high school. I'm not going to name that one either, but they were all about pushing
We
for.
we already know where you come from, so we already know that. I mean, you come from a place with one high school. We know the high school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you talk about the Twin Cities, so I mean, I'm sure there's more than one,
There's more than one youth
Christian youth conference, but
Yeah.
they were always pushing like getting your applications for, this basically like junior college program. And I remember like what the things were, and I'm like, and they were, it really was bubble wrapping, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 like Jesus was friend of sinners, and like my youth pastor was also a good guy. Like he taught us like, you can
Yeah.
love the sinner and hate the sin.
Yeah.
And I know some people don't love that, but that's true. Like he was not discriminatory against the person as a person.
Yeah, exactly. And
And so
here's a mind-blowing thought, okay? So those not Plato and Aristotle necessarily, but they're students. So when Paul went to Rome and went to Greece and Athens and all of those, he was in Athens when some of the students of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates were speaking in the public square. So he literally debated philosophers who were taught by these people, like like disciples of them. I mean,
where
if
did you learn this?
um I like in the well, not the Wealth of Nations. What other one did I was timelines. I was looking at timelines of when like some of their like Pliny and some of these other what's some of the other philosophers. I'm trying to remember all the names, but there were like literally some of them that would have been there in the square, probably listening to Paul debate them and debating in return. Like, how mind-blowing is that? So he did not shy away from these worldly views. I mean, this was the Greco-Roman world. It was an empire, and he was from basically what they considered a brand new cult in the Jewish culture, teaching, the gospel message of Christ and teaching everything that God commanded, and arguing and debating and when I say arguing, not the knockdown drag out fight, but actually literally having an apologia for
Right,
his
making
faith.
arguments. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
So, like, I mean, if you think about how mind blowing that is, one of the apostles of Christ literally spoke to these people that we in the Christian world often go, oh, hands off, we can't touch that, right?
Well,
Yeah, so it's just, I just thought that was fascinating.
and you know, the thing about it is, being so religious is
Mhm.
when the Bible says, study to show thyself approved unto God,
Mhm.
a workman that not need be ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth, right?
Yep. Yep.
And when you think about that, okay, we are in this world, we're not of this world, but we're supposed to govern this world.
Yep.
And so when they say, well, we're not, well, then we don't do the things that the so-called world do.
Mhm.
When we handle business, we don't handle business the way the world handle business.
Right.
We don't do those kind of things. And I think the biggest problem is because the Bible also said the children of darkness are smarter than the children of light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Because they learn systems. They learn
Yep.
how to do things. They learn how
Exactly.
to manage, to operate, to do things. And so we sit in
Yep.
church and shout and holler, God is good, and then cry to God to get something done that he told us to get done.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's 100% why I say we, especially like in political circles, political discussions,
Mhm.
why we need to be studying what they're doing that seems to be working.
Yep. Exactly.
Because, there's always, virtues can be vices if taken to the extreme.
Yep.
So what are they doing that could be virtuous that they're turning into a vice and, using for nefarious purposes?
Yeah.
Because we're using those same tactics and communication methods then in a virtuous way.
Yep.
We can use their rules and their game, the game tactics against them. And it's
Exactly.
not in a way to be manipulative. It's, knowing your enemy.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
No.
Did I? Oh, sorry. I thought I was interrupting somebody. Yeah, no, it's exactly true. We have to know our enemy in order to know how to fight, and not only that, to know their strategy, because like you said, Dr. King, their strategy is a long game. They know how to play it, and they know how to play it so well that they've managed to convince a free nation that socialism and communism is a good thing, right? You've got so many statistics, and I hate statistics, but there is something to be said for them to give us, at least give us warning. This is, the next generation rising. A good percentage of them actually think that socialism and communism is like the way of the future, and this is the way we need to go in order to be happy and free. So they're teaching it in such a way that they've made it so appealing. The gospel of Jesus Christ and the concept of freedom is the most appealing thing in the world, and yet we are boring people to death with it, and they're looking to other world systems to fix their problems. We should, who was it that told me? I'm trying to remember how it went. Somebody told me once that that Christians, like that Christians should be like the people in the stands for their favorite football fan. So for your case, Pittsburgh Steelers, like body paint and those foam fingers and cheering and shouting in the stand. Like that's what a Christian should look like. And I'm saying the word Christian, I know that's what a kingdom citizen should look like.
No, you said it right. That is what Christians should look like. Sit your tail on the sideline and just cheer.
No, but what I'm saying is that the excitement and the enthusiasm for, I mean, you see these people who like they commentate on their team. They know the statistics. They know everything about every player, and
So basically Dr. King, but for sports.
Pretty much, yes.
Well,
so what I'm saying is that's what a follower of Christ, a kingdom follower should be, a kingdom minister should be, is that fanatic that is dressed in body paint and literally like proclaiming that message, right? And knows it backwards and forwards.
Okay, clean it up, because we already know that somebody's gonna put paint on their face and go out there with a bullhorn and say, I'm doing this in the name of Jesus.
Oh, goodness.
but that hey, I'm not Fat Albert. That is J Rod. It's good to see J Rod.
Good to see you.
But you're right. If I can sit here and tell you that the Pittsburgh Steelers only had 3 coaches since 1969, some of the awesome players, Mean Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, right? Harrison and Troy Polamalu and Townsend, and I could name all that. I should be able to get in that word and tell you what the word of God says.
Yeah.
So in that way, so I can be in a position to do what God wants done and how he want it done. Because again, one of the reasons why, yes, I did get the
Federalist Papers.
The Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
But what I also got to help the church, the myth of separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We need to know that it's a myth.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yep.
We need to understand the original intent, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to know the courts, the Constitution, and religion. So when you start to look at these things, spiritual heritage, you need to understand. If you're spiritual, you need to understand what role in this country God really played.
Yeah.
And God did not play on the sideline, just hollering, woe is me, and then just accepting any and everything and say, well, it's God's will. You don't know God's will, because God's will is not for anybody to be in office to change his law and his commandments.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Like, okay, so I'm gonna throw one at you. So Dr. King just quoted a stat for the Steelers. My son's or the podcast that my son and I listen to, we just learned a fun fact that I didn't know. Rahab from the whole Jericho story.
Yep.
So she is actually Jesus's great something, how many greats,
grandmother?
Like
Grandma, yes.
Like
God took
she was not originally a Jew. She was like from Jericho, like this whole other belief system, and she was curious enough to realize that they were in the desert for 40 years. Their God must be something to at least keep them alive for 40 years. Maybe I'm going to try to help them, because what we're doing here ain't working, kind of thing.
Yep.
And so that's the kind of stuff too. Like, I had no idea, if I had not, one, been reading my Bible, and 2, listening to this podcast with my son, that's the kind of fun facts. Like, most people, whether or not they're spiritual, whether or not they're religious, at some point in our lives, most people have kind of heard of the Battle of Jericho.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common story.
Yeah, for sure.
And another part of that podcast, they actually talked about archaeology proving that Jericho existed, and that this wall existed, and that this wall came down.
Yeah.
Now we know that this is true. So then we know that the only existing part of the wall that was still standing was Rahab's house. Which means Rahab was real.
Yep.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that we got to be on fire about and be like, did you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, not just Rahab, but Ruth. Ruth was a Midianite woman. She had married into a family, and then her husband died, and her mother-in-law basically told her, go back to your family, go back to your gods. I'm not worth anything. She ends up marrying into the family line of Christ as well. So yeah, I mean, God uses so many people in so many different ways, and brings people from other cultures and other experiences into the body, because that's what he does. That's his work, right? Is to unite the body of Christ from all walks of life. And it's so fascinating when you were talking about archaeology. For the longest time, a lot of those places were either in war zones or were being very restricted as far as archaeological. More and more, those places are opening up, and we're seeing more and more proof of what what was
and
going
not
on
to
there.
mention, Sarah, do you know Faith?
Faith.
From up by Humbert area.
Possibly the
She's
name sounds
younger
familiar.
than me.
Okay.
Just got out of high school. Anyways, okay, so she's on a trip to Israel,
Oh, cool.
and
Bucket
she
list.
right,
Yeah.
and she gave this little fun fact. When they got into Tel Aviv, Tel literally means like built on this like mound of rubble. That's kind of
Okay.
my summary of it.
Yeah.
So literally through history, as these cities, as these communities and these villages and everything were being destroyed, then they were literally being rebuilt over it. How many times? So how much of our history has literally been covered up,
Yeah.
physically covered up, not even erased, just
Yeah.
physically covered up. And that's another part that makes it harder, not impossible, but harder to track down because it's literally been covered up.
Yeah. Well, and interesting, jumping off of that, in America, we actually have, we hear about the Native Americans from Columbus's time and maybe a few encounters with the Vikings before then. But there, basically, most people believe that those tribes and a few others were the original tribes that were living here, and and Columbus and the Spaniards and all these people wiped them out with disease and mass murder and all of these things. What they don't tell you is that people have actually dug underneath several layers of earth and discovered that at one point in America, long before Columbus's natives were there, there was actually evidence of literally agricultural type, not like wandering nomads, but literally gardens and fields, with maize and corn in planned agricultural settings, right? Before that. And not only that, but they discovered that there were multiple tribes that were at the height, hundreds of thousands of years before Columbus even got there, at the height of their what do you call it, wealth and prosperity. And by the time Columbus met them, he was meeting them as they were already dying out. So yeah, so I mean,
Well,
yeah, it's just
they
fascinating.
know that the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Incas all existed, and that was well before Columbus's time too.
Yep.
And so we know that they had in the Americas, some sort of civilization and like settling down.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes perfect sense even if you go back in not so far off history in ancient times, like because yeah, it's fascinating. Yep. I'm gonna relocate so I can plug in. So I'm gonna mute and turn the camera off for a minute.
Sounds good. I'll keep talking. So yeah, so this whole concept of America being like this racist, bigoted, hateful white people who came in and destroyed the cultures that were already here and took over and everything like that. We obviously know, if we had any ounce of integrity and were able to search through journals, because there is information out there. Yes, it is sometimes difficult to find, especially, ironically, the more technology takes over because they like to bury all that stuff. Which is an irony in of itself. We have buried history that we are just starting to understand, and in the meantime, historians are burying history. So it's kind of funny. I know it's a silly joke, but regardless, there is something to be said about that. But in spite of all of that, we have enough of history to understand that America was something unique, even with the thousands of years of history, with the millennia of recorded history that we have. That America was a unique situation and one of the greatest and freest countries. And again, we go back to built on principles, built on values of God-given, God-granted rights. And it just, it is such a fascinating idea. When you go back throughout history, you'll see cultures that had little elements, right? Elements of freedom, elements of human rights, and elements of free markets and stuff like that. But what they didn't have was the kingdom perspective, the kingdom citizens perspective. And so one of the questions that my depth program is asking right now, that we're really kind of going into discussion about, is what is it actually to be a citizen, right? And obviously I come from the kingdom citizen perspective, but that is actively a part of um, what my role as a citizen in America as well. It is the central core of my role as a citizen. And so what does that citizenship look like? How am I a good civic minded citizen, right? And it really does come back to that. What are our core values? What are our fundamental principles? And how does that play out in our individual missions and purposes that God has planted in our hearts and minds? And are we going to embrace that and explore that and act it out in this world? Or are we going to hide our lamp under a bushel and be a sedentary part of America that watches it burn, right? So I have hope for America, and I am going to do my level best to use my God-given mission and purpose to fight for freedom. So what is my depth program? Oh, yes, it is open to join. So Thomas Jefferson Education, or tjed.org. They have what they call a leadership model of education. I'm using a lot of their model to teach my own children at home, but they have some online programs. There's mentoring in the classics. It's a place you can go, and they have basically, it's a book club. Every month they have one or two books that they go through and have debriefs where you listen to the mentors discuss and kind of debate the different ideas of each book. Some of them are fiction, some of them are nonfiction, some of them are essays, some of them are, Constitution and, the legal documents and things like that. But so my daughter's part of Thomas Jefferson Education High, so the high school version. And because I'm a continuing education, I get to go into what they call their depth phase. And they just started their pilot program, so I'm kind of in the first part of it, which is really exciting. Where I will tell you, the thing that I can compare it to the best is a massively classics, liberal arts based graduate program. I can't, that's the closest I can come to it, because you don't get a degree at the end of it, but you get the knowledge base and you get the discussion forums, you get the mentors. And there's a couple different levels that you can join on. It's a subscription based, so you can come in and try it. And then if you don't like it, or you can take a break. But yeah, it is an excellent program so far. I'm finishing up my last 2 weeks of the first term already. It's so strange. Or sorry, 3 weeks of the first term. And I am absolutely loving it. It's so fun. A lot of the stuff that you see me teaching on here comes right out of that program. So yeah. Anyway.
All right. I am back.
Good to see you, Dr. King.
The princess wanted her house put up, so I had to go put her house together.
Daddy's got to build the house.
So now she's in it and content. So
yeah, awesome.
I tell you, she's a female and
precious.
I'm gonna use that, precious, okay? Because y'all know how y'all get. But anyway,
and you love us anyway, don't you?
I have no choice.
Here, I'll sit below this one. It kind of looks like
it looks angelic.
3 pillows to choose from.
Have you started with the?
No, we didn't get into the Constitution yet. We were doing a lot of foundation building. So.
Oh, okay.
So you came right on time.
All right. So.
All right.
Whenever you ready, I'm ready.
All right, let's dive in. Okay, so we stopped last week with excessive bail and cruel punishments, and then the rights of the accused, and talking about the right of the accused to be able to defend themselves and to hear their accusers and all of that sort of thing, face their accusers, I should say. And so now we're getting into a little bit more of that. Basically the criminal aspects of what your rights are in the criminal courts and the civil courts, and yeah, so we'll talk about that. And I wanted to kind of just, if you guys have as a federal constitution, I would strongly advise that you compare the Bill of Rights with some of these first rights, because a lot of them are taken almost verbatim from the Bill of Rights. So yeah. Anyway.
And we're talking about the Wisconsin Constitution,
Yes,
right?
Wisconsin State Constitution. Oh, we didn't link the. Let's see. Amber, do you mind if you can find real quick the Wisconsin State Constitution on the Wisconsin website, and then we could just link that if people wanted to use it? That would be lovely.
Okay.
Or Dr. King, whichever one wants to. It shouldn't be too hard to find. It's basically when you do a search of the Wisconsin State Constitution, the first one should be the PDF version. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that, and then we can go into, yeah. So, so obviously last week we talked about the first few Declaration of Rights. This was Article 1 of the Wisconsin State Constitution. We compared it, like I said, with the Bill of Rights, because that's exactly where they took it from. But they expanded on some of the explanations and things, which is really cool, because they deal with a lot more of the nitty-gritty of everyday life, as opposed to the federal Constitution, which is basically their job is twofold. You can break it down into 18 to 20 different roles, but their job is basically to defend and protect our rights and to defend our sovereign borders. So that's their job, and they're doing a lot more than that nowadays. But anyway, so what we have then, we're going into the next one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The section 8 of Article 1, and this one's regarding prosecutions, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, bail, and habeas corpus. It was amended in 1870 and in 1981. So, I'll be reading the amended one. And let's see, I would have to find. I will tell you the original copy is in like little minuscule spider writing, so it's really hard to read. So I will probably not be able to compare and contrast them to the original. But basically, this one is just the amended version of it. So it starts with number 1: no person may be held to answer for a criminal offense without due process of law, and no person for the same offense may be put twice in jeopardy of punishment, nor may be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself or herself. That goes right back to the 5th, is that the 5th Amendment? Yes. The 5th Amendment in the federal Constitution. It's basically almost the same wording, where it talks about you have protections. It's the innocent until proven guilty idea, and then you cannot be retried for a case that you've already been acquitted of, and it doesn't endanger you further. So, number 2: all persons before conviction shall be eligible for release under reasonable conditions designed to assure their appearance in court, protect members of the community from serious bodily harm, or prevent the intimidation of witnesses. Monetary conditions of release may be imposed at or after the initial appearance only upon a finding that there is a reasonable basis to believe that the conditions are necessary to assure appearance in court. The legislature may authorize by law courts to revoke a person's release for a violation of a condition of release. So, that's a lot of words. So let me try to parse it out. I am not a legal expert, and so some of these are hard even for me to figure out. But basically, it's talking about holding people before they've been convicted. So when you've got those 72-hour holds and those types of things. Let me see if I'm missing something. Oh, okay. All right, good. Yeah. So, yeah, Amber, if you want to jump in, because I know you've been doing a lot more of the legal side of things.
Yeah.
Love to
Yep.
have you kind of speak to this one.
Yep. I am going to add a disclaimer here. I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal representative. I'm just very passionate about our rights. So, with that disclaimer, this is where in the Bill of Rights, like Sarah said, I almost called you Amanda. I don't know why. That was weird.
That's funny. That was
my-
actually a nickname my cousins called me when I was growing up. I don't know why.
Well, that's even more interesting.
Yeah.
But as you referenced, this is the Fifth Amendment in the U.S. U.S. Constitution. That's where we get pleading the Fifth from. And this, I would say, is one of the most important constitutional sections to know in your state constitution and in the U.S. Constitution because of all of the different components, everything that pleading the Fifth means. I mean, you can even go on Wikipedia, you guys. And I don't like Wikipedia because anyone can kind of go in and suggest edits.
Yes.
But you can even go on Wikipedia, okay, and understand what pleading the Fifth really means.
Mm-hmm.
Look at, where the history of that term came from. It's very closely tied to the Miranda rights, which I also highly, highly recommend you doing a little search on to fully understand the scope and everything that it encompasses, okay? Going back to what we were kind of introducing the idea, or mostly Sarah was introducing the idea of, is a law more about preventing injustice to ensure justice, or is it taking freedoms?
Yes.
This one, regarding like the 72-hour hold and all these things, like this is why we have innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
But this is also why we need to know this constitutional section, because if we don't, the things like those holds happen. The things like, extended holds happen.
Yep.
That's where our rights start getting stomped on because we're not holding them accountable to this constitutional amendment and to this art. Is this one of the articles or one of the sections in an article?
This is section 8 of Article 1. So this is basically the state's version of the Bill of Rights.
Right.
So it's dealing with a lot of the same issues that the federal does, but really expanding on it and explaining it in more detail. So yeah.
So this is one where if you guys are note takers, I would write down Section 8, Article 1, Wisconsin State Constitution.
Yep.
And then, literally write down, I would chunk it out. Chunk it out like
it's broken into 4 subsections. Yep.
Yeah. So each subsection, chunk it out into its own line and write down what that line implies for you in your life.
Yep.
And how, you would use it, how you would apply it. That's how we're going to enforce the Constitution.
Yep.
Is by taking each section, each subsection, and literally explaining what it means to us in our own words, because that's also going to help our memory to retain what it is. Even if we're not quoting it verbatim, we will at least get the summary of that section. So this one, highly, highly recommend taking notes on, and just like your favorite Bible verses, the ones that you use when you are down and out.
Yeah.
This is one that you want to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the books that I read at the beginning of the depth program was called 19 Apps. And it talks about not apps as in phone apps. It talks about applications that help you to retain information, to study, to actually gain a good education. And one of those was using like index cards. Like each card can be a specific part of the information that you need. So if you're going through the Wisconsin State Constitution, break down each article, break down each section, break down each subsection into cards, and then just keep reading them. And obviously you're not going to necessarily know the whole of the Wisconsin state Constitution. There's a lot there, and there's a lot of legal jargon. There's a lot of stuff that, it gets down into the weeds a bit, but that's actually good because it has a clearer definitions and very clear parameters for what the state or what the state government is there for, again, to prevent injustice. And so these types of things, if you're breaking it down, then you can reference them and you can keep them in a good place. That way you can utilize them and you know where they are when you need them, right? As opposed to, crap, CPS showed up at my door and now I don't have, now I've got to go searching through the whole state constitution. Instead, you've got a card you can pull out and go, okay, here's where I go get protections.
In that particular case, if any 3 or 4 letter organizations come knocking on your door, I will do one better.
Yep, you can go
the Constitution, which is still good. Still do that. Maybe attach it to this. I know in previous shows I have shared about Chrisanne Hall's resource, that's the right to trespass.
Yep.
It's on her chrisannehall.com website somewhere in one of the sub menu sections. I think.
Yeah, I just did a search for it.
Or something.
Yep.
In our PMA Power Facebook group, we also have a copy of that. I do believe David even got permission from her to post it in our group.
Awesome.
I could be wrong on that, but I know it's free access anyways. So if you want a copy of it and you don't have it, this is not exclusively for PMA people.
Yeah.
This is for anyone and everyone who has someone coming and knocking on your door that does not belong there.
Yep.
If they do not have a proper warrant, which if you're maintaining your privacy correctly, they don't have what they need to get a warrant.
Yep.
Let alone have one properly signed by a judge with all the components they need. You read that sucker to them. You read that script to them and tell them they are trespassing.
Yep.
And that they are welcome. I mean, you can be polite about it. You can start out super nice and polite.
Oh yeah, for
you
sure.
don't need to be confrontational. You can be assertive and polite.
Yep.
Invite them off of your property. Use that southern bless your heart kind of attitude. Like, oh, well, thanks for coming by, but thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep, like for those who know friends.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. There are definitely resources out there. There are people who we have access to, and that you can do research on, that give you, really do break down these types of things. But at the same time, we don't want to leave you with, oh, I can just go to this person and get this stuff. You have to know this stuff yourself, because you could read something off and not understand a word of it, right? And part of the whole being able to read it off to them is to have that confidence, because you know what you stand on, what leg you stand on. And that actually displays itself when you are reading it to them and going, you have no right to be here, right?
Right.
Yeah. And that is where the self-responsibility topic keeps coming back full circle.
I don't know.
I can't know this stuff for you.
Yes.
You can't just wave the Constitution in their face and be like, Constitution, Constitution. They're just
like, I've read my Constitution. What,
would y'all quit cussing?
What, self-responsibility?
Yes.
Oh,
it's our new cuss word. Self-government, self-responsibility. We can't say that anymore.
That's the cuss word. Self-government, self-responsibility.
What did they kick you off of YouTube for that?
I don't know, but
yeah. Well, yeah. So
you want me to be responsible, and I want everybody else to be.
Well, that's the whole point.
I know it's hard work.
Yes. But it is worth it. And that's the thing that we've got to keep saying. How much is our God-given rights? How much are our God-given rights worth it to us, right? How much, sorry, I'm self-editing. Have you noticed? That didn't come out right. Let me rephrase that. How much are our God-given rights worth it to us, right? Freedom to me is worth everything. When I go back to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, where they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, guys, that's everything. to protect themselves and to protect future posterity, right? The whole concept was this is worth so much to us that we will give up everything we have, including our own rights, in order to preserve this for others, right? And that's exactly, it is so worth it. And the only way that it is going to mean anything is if you guys have the knowledge and that understanding and can apply it.
I have a fun visual for you guys. So I've been studying kind of balancing the the more creative, flowy side of how each of us has within us, and then the more functional, like executive get stuff done side. Okay. And this particular group is calling it like your inner masculine, inner feminine. Just for sake of having an easy term for it. Some people like that, some people don't, whatever. So anyways, I went through this exercise and looking at what does my creative feminine side want my masculine, like more executive side to do that it's not doing. And literally, I'm very visual. So my more feminine side was like showing my masculine side, like karate chopping, kung fu fighting style jujitsu takedown of everything that's getting in my way of being self-responsible and getting my stuff done. And I want us to get to that point of like urgency and this like primal, not in an aggressive way, but like I will defend this.
Yes.
Which includes butt kicking.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever watched
violent.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Dead Poets Society, either of you?
Yes.
Okay. That one scene, do you remember that one scene where he's trying to get them to like basically express themselves creatively as opposed to just reading from a textbook? And he gets them up to do that barbaric yop. That was what I visualized when you were saying that. That's it's a battle cry, right? And I'm not talking with physical pew machines and all of that stuff. I'm talking literally, we are going to war for our future generations and for our own selves to fight against the rise of these worldviews that are antithetical to kingdom citizenship and to America. You can't have one without the other ultimately and still preserve your freedom. And so, Jefferson, I believe, was the one who said that the ignorance, anybody who, how does that go? It's like, it's a rhyme. Those who would be, ignorant and free are those who would be ignorant and free are dreaming of a world that never was and never will be. That's the basic gist of it. It's true. Ignorance does not produce freedom. It produces slavery and tyranny. And we have so many examples throughout history, even within our own time. You don't even have to dive back in, like you said, to the ancient times. Just look at our own time today and see these world cultures. This is where we need to be. We were placed here for such a time as this. And your mission and purpose may not be running for a political position, but that doesn't make your position any less important, because every position should be, every mission, every purpose should be this kingdom-minded, freedom-minded service. And that's where we need to go.
I tell people all the time that our biggest enemy is not the devil. Our biggest enemy is ignorance. That is our biggest enemy. Because the reason a lot of people is afraid of the devil, because they're ignorant and don't realize they have more power than the devil. So, so when we look at it, the devil loves for us to stay ignorant. Government love for you to stay ignorant. I mean, we voted people in office that never read the Constitution or studied the Constitution. So, but they swear to protect something they never studied.
Yeah. Like, did
so
you
how
know?
You gonna protect it?
Did you know we have had a certain Asian country's surveillance equipment floating over our country?
I know Jared and his group knows very well. They've been posting about it.
Yeah,
I heard that there was a second one.
Yes,
but it was a flying saucer. They've
known since the 28th of January that this was here. and they did nothing. So you ask the president and he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. You ask the former vice president and he's like, oh, well, we're monitoring the situation, right? And then you ask the Congress people, and I actually have a direct line to one of my Congress members, and I asked him, so what are you doing to take this thing out of our airspace? Because this is an invasion, right? And they're like, well, we can't do anything because our president is weak. And I'm like, Article 1, Section 8 states that you, as Congress, have the right and the duty to basically call up the militia to defend against foreign invasion. Literally, in our Constitution, it says that is your job.
Do it.
So you don't have to declare outright war. All you have to do is call up the militia in Montana and say, take that thing out of our sky. That doesn't belong here, right?
Yep.
And this is a guy who's supposedly very constitutionally minded. I love him as a person. He's a God-fearing man, but he does not know his Constitution, because if he did, they would have been on that floor in Congress going, we are going to call up the militia in Montana, and I hope every God-fearing, gun-toting marshal and citizen in Montana comes out and shoots that blasted thing out of the sky. That is their job. They're not supposed to wait for the president to declare war.
Here's what's funny to me. If you as a citizen fly a drone in the wrong space, you will not only have that thing taken down out of the sky, but you will be behind bars.
Yep, those 3-letter agencies will be after you in quite a quick minute. Yeah. But we have a foreign invader who's literally surveilling our secure locations in America. That's what they were there for. They were looking very closely at all of the places that deal with our national security. And we're just going to sit there and let it float around and not do a single thing.
And supposedly, again, 3-letter agencies, put away or clean up anything that would be confidential. Like, I'm pretty sure if it's big enough to be seen in airspace, you can't just put it away in a closet.
It is the size of 3 school buses. So they did actually take it down today. They did shoot it down. But why did they wait till it started?
We knew when it was over Alaska and Canada.
That's because we got all the pictures we needed.
Yeah, pretty much. Like we gave them what they needed, and so now we can shoot them down, right? And pretend that we were monitoring the whole situation. Yeah, how much information has gone back to the Asian country that they didn't have before? And I know that they've got spies in our borders. They've got 200,000 acres of our land in their control.
And we're all on TikTok, which is
exactly. But they were literally videoing our national security, and our former vice president did nothing. Our Congress did nothing. I'm sorry. At this point, I'm declaring, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but at this point, I'm declaring that our federal government is illegitimate and needs to go. Because not once did in any of this, in the last however many years, they have been slowly but surely completely violating our Constitution. And in the process of that, decimating our God-given rights.
But you remember when that Peanut Man was president, and they took over one of the embassies, and look how long they had that embassy, that it took a man that be on movies to say, hey, you guys either back out or we're coming in.
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to say about your legislative meeting this morning. You mentioned the embassy and having, as an ambassador, you have protection. I wanted to say something to the effect of not the last administration.
That's why I'm glad
that
I'm part
poor
of the
ambassador didn't have his protection.
That's why I'm glad that I represent the government of heaven versus because man, I mean, anybody can be an ambassador now for this country. I mean, look what Tom Barry did to the city of Milwaukee, and then he get a promotion to ambassador. Really?
Yeah.
So, but when we look at it and we start dealing with people with the Constitution, their rights, so that way they can be free, they can be protected, they can protect their family.
Yep.
I think that a lot of people, though, you put somebody to protect your constitutional rights, and they don't even know their rights.
Yeah.
That's just like
Exactly.
that's just like me getting ready to go to Mississippi, and I'm asking somebody never driven before how to get somewhere that they never been before.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you take the taxi to the airport, and then the plane takes you.
Or,
Okay, I'm not really sorry.
but here, how do you know the pilot is taking you where you really want to go? You don't. You get in the plane and you
trust
hoping
Yeah.
that he's taking you where you was planning on going.
Yep. Don't talk about Mississippi. Who's the Facebook user? I'm curious to see. Thank you, by the way, for finding that quote. I really botched it.
That's my brother Lamar.
Hi, Lamar.
Out of Kenosha, who's running for school board in Oshkosh. I'm not really talking about Mississippi. I mean, I got babies in Mississippi. I got grandbabies in Mississippi. I'm just using that as an analysis. Do I like Mississippi? Yep. Yeah, I kind of.
I mean, they don't have no Pittsburgh Steelers, but.
Oh, actually, they do.
Actually,
they do.
Yeah.
There is a Pittsburgh Steelers. The church, the pastor, is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan in Mississippi, and the reason he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan is because his brother won Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers. His brother played with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, then of course you have to be a fan.
Of course, I mean, you know.
Now, what's your excuse? Is your brother on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I've been a Steelers fan since 1969.
Yeah, I guess that long term.
I was 8 years old when I became a Steelers fan. I couldn't be well, you know, I tried, but you know, Packers just I don't know.
Oh gosh.
I don't know. Trying to be a Packer fan. Maybe when Aaron Rodgers leaves, maybe I'll be a Packer fan.
Oh, blasphemy.
No, because Aaron Rodgers is doing to Jody Love what Brett Favre did to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Brett Favre was hurting,
I'm not a big follower of football or anything, but when he stood up against the jab mandates, I have great respect.
Well, actually, he didn't really stand up. He hid. He wasn't man enough to really stand up. He hid, and then when it was exposed, then he tried to use a different term. You know.
You know what? So he still didn't do it though. He still didn't cave.
Yeah, but if you want to talk about stand up, we would have to say Kyrie Irving, because he literally stood up and said, "I'm not doing it." Period.
I also respect what Aaron Rodgers was saying, and I forget exactly what he said and how he said it about some alternative plant medicine stuff.
But just say that before you get busted. Don't wait till you get busted and then say it.
But in his defense, I'm going to say it's nobody's business. So he had every right to keep that from everybody.
You're right. It's nobody's business, but
that's personal freedom there, mister.
Yeah.
And I mean, all of the laws against anything, you know, any product, we'll say, whether it's plant-based, you know, God created or man-made, technically is unconstitutional. I know we talked about that last week. It's about self-governance and choosing what to do with I
just say be bold with your self-government. Don't hide.
I got another book to read about that.
Of course.
It's called The Right and Wrong of Compulsion by the State. Oh, maybe you can't see it. I'm taking lots of notes. This is one of those I'm gonna eventually get a paper copy, but yeah. So he goes through basically. I'm reading these things and I'm going, whew. Well, then this is exactly what we're going through today. He wrote it in the 1800s. But yeah, he says, let's see. So he's talking in this chapter about basically abolishing all of these governmental restraints and regulations that we have thrown at people, because all of these laws, they're compelling, they're not preventing injustice, they're restraining freedom, right? So here we go. I'm just going to read a couple headlines and just tell me if these sound familiar, right? So class D, he says, the abolition of restraints which give a character of infallibility to the state replace the judgment of the individual as regards his own conduct and duties by the judgment of the state, and by the sterilizing effect of physical and external force prevent the development of self-protecting qualities and the transforming influences of moral force. So he goes into some examples, right? First example, repeal of laws enforcing vaccination. This is in the 1800s, guys. 1800s. How about this one? Directing the compulsory removal of the sick. Quarantines, anybody? How about this one? Imposing regulations as regards the labor or education of children on the whole class of parents.
Indoctrination.
Yeah. How about this one? Attempting either to prevent or to impose certain opinions, such as the exaction of political or religious oaths from members of parliament. How about this one? Impeding and harassing those who believe in or would examine the facts of spiritualism, enforcing a special observance of the Sunday, suppressing brothels. This one got to me because this one was uncomfortable. But again, this is private business. And what he's saying is not that those are right. In fact, he even goes later on and he talks about this, that those are not places he condones at all. He talks about, drugs, drugs and substances and stuff, as not restricting those, because what he says is that the more we restrict them, the more they go underground and the less our moral compass is allowed to get into those places and change or redeem them, right? Because if the government's got it, right, the church goes, okay, we'll just step back and we're not going to do anything. So it was like really uncomfortable when I first read that, but it makes sense when we're talking about a freedom shift. The more regulations we place over private businesses and private property and our individual self-governance, the less freedom we have and the less we have the ability to meet a higher moral standard, because the government then becomes that moral standard.
I'll give you another two examples that are also uncomfortable to consider. This even includes seatbelt laws and no drinking and driving laws.
Yep. So what he says about this, though, is going back to that whole concept of preventing injustice, the only time the state intervenes in any of these things is if it harms the rights or takes the rights of another person. So if you are drinking and driving, that is your right. If you hit somebody and harm them,
bingo,
that is what you are being punished for.
So wait a minute, because I'm confused.
Are you really?
I'm always confused dealing with you two, but anyway.
Let us clarify for you then.
Yeah, because when we say, hold on, let me get her situated.
Oh, this book is
I've had a dog in the background pacing because he doesn't know how to sit still.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
Drinking and driving. I shouldn't get arrested if I'm drunk and driving.
Yep.
Correct.
I should get arrested if I'm drinking and driving.
Correct.
Correct.
So if I'm drunk and I'm driving, I shouldn't get arrested.
The only time you should get arrested is if you are putting other people in harm's way or taking away their rights.
Actively, not just the potential of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if you are driving drunk and you are literally swerving through lanes of traffic and you are causing near or accidents, right? That's what you would be stopped for, not for the drinking itself.
Even if your daughter or someone else was in the vehicle with you, that's a much more active act of taking someone else's rights away.
Okay.
Whereas if it's just you and you make that decision for your own life, on your own. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a
Yeah.
really,
Well,
really hard
well,
one to.
actually, ladies, I was about to make a joke, but y'all just took it serious and went straight there. So you
Oh.
took the joke away. So next time, I'm gonna tell you guys it's a joke first.
Oh, okay.
Here, let me give you the
Well-
punchline after, right? Well, you can still give the punchline. Come
Yeah,
on.
it's a joke.
It's no joke no more now because y'all done took it. Y'all took it away. You know,
This
I'm
is
like,
serious business.
You and was it last week or 2 weeks ago? You took very literally some words that I said and like we're so literal about what I said. So we're just turning, getting even.
Turning the pages.
I could see, but no, I was just gonna make a joke because, I mean, we telling these people
Yeah.
about the laws, but I don't want them to take it and just run with it and say, well, I can do that because you're messing with my rights, but you're missing that the moment you endanger someone else,
Yep.
okay? And that's the part that we keep missing. Because everybody say, well, I have the right. Your rights stop when you start to endanger somebody else.
Yep. Exactly.
And so, most people don't get arrested for drinking and driving. They get arrested for being drunk.
Yep.
Now, drinking and driving means I got my Hennessy and I'm drinking it as I'm driving.
Yeah.
But they don't get arrested for that.
They
They get arrested because they're already intoxicated
Yeah.
and they're driving.
Yeah.
And so, and I know what some people say, well, when you're drinking and driving, you're distracted, you're doing things. But what about the women that's putting makeup on and driving? Is that not endangering other folks?
It could. Yeah.
I literally saw a man on the freeway with his laptop in his hand,
Yeah.
driving and trying to do work at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, shouldn't he get arrested?
If he's actively endangering others, yes.
Well, in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I got pulled over and almost arrested for DWB.
What is that?
Driving while black. There was areas in Wisconsin we was not allowed to drive in. Like, yeah.
In the 80s and 90s?
Late 80s, early 90s, if a black person drove in Brookfield in Waukesha County, they got pulled over immediately.
I actually, the guy who was most recently our town cop said he used to actually be an officer down in the Milwaukee area before he came up here. And he told us the story. He actually worked in a neighborhood that was primarily minority. And so he actually was pulling over anyone. Okay, so here's the story. There's this dude that was driving in this, black neighborhood, basically. And he got pulled over by the officer. He's like, dude, why'd you pull me over? He's like, you got 5 minutes? And he had the dude that he pulled over come sit with him. I want you to look at every person that goes through this intersection and point out the first white person you see here. He sat there with the officer, I think for like an hour, something like that. And only saw I don't know if they saw any or just one or if he was the only one. It's like the only white people that are in this neighborhood are up to no good. They're doing drugs or criminals. So you can see that like literally. So he's like, yeah, no, I just made a wrong turn. And I didn't mean it. Like, I wasn't even planning on going through here. It was like an innocent thing. So yeah, I can understand that. And he's like my parents' age. So that's like recent times, the last 10, 20 years.
If you saw a white person in a all predominant black neighborhood, they pulled them over for driving while white because you don't belong there. Are you buying drugs? This is what they say to them. Are you buying drugs? Are you buying a prostitute? Why are you here?
Wow.
Yep. So yeah, that officer can totally corroborate that.
But we could not drive in in 1992. I worked in Brookfield. I was the only black in Brookfield working for Applebee's at the time. Got pulled over. I left a place called Shorewood, right outskirts of Milwaukee. You get pulled at late 80s, early 90s. When they would pull a black over, it'd be 4 or 5 police cars.
Wow.
Pulling over one car. Now, I couldn't use my Constitution there because they probably wouldn't let me talk because they would have said something. But you know, the reality that happened, it didn't happen to, you know, all the time, but it did happen with certain officers. Now, when I traveled the state in 2008, 9, 10, going to tea parties and everything, I never had a problem with a police officer.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
and I think most of them, because I'm trying to think what county was that the sheriff at the time when they was talking about concealed carry and all of that, right before they made it legal, he was like, we're not going to arrest anybody if they conceal carry. That's their right.
Yeah.
So he was a constitutional sheriff.
Good for him. Good for him.
You know, I'm glad you brought this up because I don't know if this is surprising or not, so y'all can laugh at me. One of my favorite shows in the 90s was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, I can sing to you the theme song where I'm not going to, but I could.
Oh, come on. I had to sing last time.
No. Anyways, in that show, there's one episode, and I feel like it was later on because they both, Will and Carlton both had driver's licenses, if I remember right. And they were driving Uncle, it's just lost his name.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. They was driving, Carlton was driving his dad's partner car to where they were. And he was driving slow, and the police pulled him over. And every time the police officer asked Carlton a question, the way Carlton would answer it, then all of a sudden Will say, "Get out the car, Carlton." And he's like, "Why?" And the police officer, "Get out the car, Carlton." Told them to get out the car. And he arrested them, and they gave a bogus confession. And the part I loved about that was not Uncle Phil, but the wife. When she got ready to take the her earrings off. Talking about, we're about to get busy up in here.
Oh yeah, Vivian, right?
Yeah, Vivian. Yep.
Yeah, so they went into basically like the bailiff, and she went full on righteous rant. Like, I was in tears. I was like cheering her on. Like, it was so empowering. Like, our generation, she was basically like saying our generation went through this, so my kids shouldn't have had to deal with this kind of stuff. And just like, ooh, yeah. If you have not seen that episode, YouTube it, because it's exactly what we're talking about here.
And the thing about it is what you said earlier. Carlton was bubble wrapped.
Yes.
And Will was not. He understood the real world. Yeah. And he knew exactly why the police put him over. They only put him over because he was black. It ain't that they broke a law. And they automatically assumed they was car thieves. Automatically.
Yeah.
And Carlton couldn't get it in his head that the police officer was just doing his job. He couldn't because he was so bubbled.
Yeah.
You know, Will was like, dude, do you realize what just took place? You know, and even Phil said it. Uncle Phil said, what did he say? He says, I brought y'all out here so you wouldn't have to go through that, but you have to. And look how many successful lawyers got pulled over because they was black driving a nice car, or, you know,
didn't Uncle Phil even say that even he had still gotten pulled over even as a judge?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so him as a very successful black man driving a very nice car because he was a judge and could afford it
Yeah.
and live in Bel Air was still getting pulled over.
Right.
Hmm.
That's why you
Yep.
couldn't have white friends in the hood because they was gonna get pulled over, and they
Yep.
were just coming to visit you. So
My ex
when
was driving through Hopkins area up in the cities and got pulled over, and where he was driving, that is not I know where the area he was, and it's not an area you can even speed even if you want to.
Wow.
Like just the way the road is. So he was not speeding.
Wow.
So yeah, it's crazy.
The only scene I ever saw from that was the one where his where Will's father basically abandoned him and
Oh,
his
that one too.
I cried.
Don't even, girl. That one
And
gets me. I'm more
I
emotional.
I
So
loved his uncle. His uncle was like, oh
perfect.
man,
They
it
wrote
was
that very well.
spot on the way that he dealt with it, let him grieve and let him deal with, the hurt and stuff and let him work through all that and then go, but I'm here. Like I am present, I am here. And
Yep.
I've got tears
Yep.
tears
Thank
starting.
you, girl. I'm emotional right now. I can't handle this.
I will stop there. So we can bring it back to what we were getting at. One of the other parts that I just wanted to really quick deal with was because this is a big issue in our time. One of the things, and this is again written in the 1800s, so a while
you
ago,
hungry?
he writes this. He said he's talking about the medical profession. They had a whole bunch of regulations on, how the schooling was done, how the profession was, everything, the regulations on, he did not want people experimenting on animals because it has nothing to do with the human body, all of this stuff. But he says the profession, as in the medical profession, must be thrown open. It must be made absolutely free, leaving to each medical school to choose and to follow its own course and methods. In such a case, what he was talking about was anti-vivisectionists, so like the like opening cadavers and things like that. The anti people would either get some of the hospitals with their schools of teaching into their own hands or create new ones, and the matter would be brought to a practical test whether the more human and humane methods are or are not in the long run best for men. There is no profession which seems to me to be greater or nobler in itself than that which is concerned with human healing, but I am convinced that its interests cannot and will not coincide with those of society so long as any legal power or any kind of monopoly is left in its hands. Monopolies have always bred interests that diverge from those of society. It has been so with the church in all ages. It is so today with the professions of law and medicine, just as it also is to pass to our lower level with the trade of liquor selling. And he goes on and explains all that stuff. But
Oh, so you're saying, and I'm gonna spoonerism the two names so we don't get in trouble. So you're saying the Rothschild and the Rothfellers
yeah,
should not have a monopoly on medicine?
no, not at all.
By the way, that was really difficult to do.
Trying to figure out how that works. Yeah, I mean, and he dives into these, and he goes into. I mean, the next one is about laws compelling the education of children. Once you get the government involved in the mandating or compelling
It's a
of,
government school.
it is no longer freedom. It is indoctrination. It is an agenda that has nothing to do with protecting and preserving the God-given rights that we have. So I mean, just like honestly, this is why we are opening up the constitutions, both of them, all three of them, sorry, because we're talking about kingdom citizenship as well. We are opening up these constitutions wide and we are diving into them, not because we know everything and we're experts or we have a monopoly on the truth, but because we want to explore this, to question it, and to look and compare and contrast what is it saying versus what is happening. And then find our mission and purpose in the process of this and figure out what we are meant to do in this day and age, in this time and place, to fight back and grab back, if we have to, by the skin of our teeth, grab back our freedoms. So yeah, but what I'm saying is that you go back through history and you have people in every era discussing the difference between government compulsion and freedom. And both sides have strong arguments, but for some reason now in America, the freedom loving side is just now coming to build those strong arguments again. All we had to do is go back into our classics and see exactly what those arguments are, because they are so compelling, right?
Afterward, you should post the name of that book again, and send it to me, because that's definitely one that I'm gonna dig into, because in my circles, in my networks, that kind of stuff, those kinds of statements are how we assert and defend our rights.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
100%. And that's where in PMA land, I'm kind of like circle this around to that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
In PMA land, and private unincorporated ministries,
Mm-hmm.
when you get your documents from me or from any advisor, they're not magic sheets of paper. The Constitution is not even a magic sheet of paper.
Yep.
I can't grab that here. I'm going to grab this receipt for now, just for a second. This piece of paper is not going to protect you from diddly squat.
Yep.
Maybe from seeing something. That's about it. You have to know what's on this sheet of paper and what it means.
Yep.
This sheet of paper, pretending it's the Constitution for a second, this sheet of paper protects and defends or guarantees my rights. But I have to know that it says that and how it says that, because what's on this paper holds the people at that door accountable, because by law they're supposed to follow what's on this, regardless of whether they read it. Just like when you have an Amazon account, every single one of us who has an Amazon account, Walmart account, an account anywhere, literally anywhere, had to mark that you agree to the terms and conditions. And yet, how many of us? I might be one of the freaks who now reads all of those. Yep, Sarah's one of those too.
I was doing it long before I realized I knew why I was doing it.
I would at least kind of scan and scroll through, but now I give it a pretty decent look over. But even if you've never actually read those terms and conditions from Amazon, you are still held and bound by those agreements that you agreed to. It's a contract, literally a contract.
Exactly.
And that's why in the United States, contract law is still held to a very, very high standard.
Yep.
As long as you know how it works.
Exactly.
And that's why, even with having a rental in the private domain with a private contract, it's no longer called an eviction. It's called trespassing, because there was a breach of contract which caused the termination of membership.
Yep.
They are literally trespassing. It's not it's no longer a matter of evicting because they didn't pay. And in northern states, every year we go through a period where you can't evict because it's a cold weather season. It's a heating season. And then obviously during a certain last 3 years of things with fake emergency, you also couldn't do it. But that's where you got to know what's written on the sheet of paper to make the people at that door and the people in that courtroom do what you want to do.
Yep. And the interesting thing is a lot of these books that I'm reading, they will go into the kind of the counterpoints, right? Oh, people will argue that this means that if you fight against this, you are fighting against health, right? You're fighting against the medical community, you're fighting against health, right? You don't want people to be healthy. Or if you're fighting against religious regulations, you're against the church. No, this is not the point. And those are completely separate issues, because those are not straw man, but it's a type of fallacy where you're basically throwing something out there to say, this is, if you are against this, then you must be against this. And they don't even match in any way, shape, or form.
I vote, since you brought up fallacies, I'm gonna throw my vote out there that after we get through what we're going to get through with the state constitution, we go into logical fallacies.
I've got a Tuttle Twins book for that.
Because, and here's why, as we learn to be effective communicators and effective listeners, we need to be able to point out the fallacies that others are using in an effort to coerce and basically propagandize. I don't know how to say that word, but use propaganda to persuade.
I'm gonna have to start a GoFundMe campaign.
So funny for Dr. King's book funds. He needs his library funding.
Well, you know what? There's so much free information out there about what the logical fallacies are and examples. That one won't cost you anything either.
No, but you guys already got a set, Dr. King. You got a set of the Tuttle Twins.
I know I do, but you know,
It's a really good book, and it's very easily explained too. Because I could go into some of the older ones, like there's actually a book called Logic, but it's from the language is a little bit more scholarly, right? And so if we're going to try to break it down for anybody at any level, because again, this is just building on this knowledge base that most people nowadays don't have. So farmers back in the 1700s were fully literate and were able to discuss and debate constitutional laws or versus unconstitutional laws and those things. Nowadays, we've been so dumbed down by the education system that it's not an insult on anybody. It's just stating a fact that the education system has been so propagandized and so institutionalized that we don't have all of this foundational stuff. So if we start from a foundation and build up, this will help you guys going forward. You can then look into these information, look into the Constitution and stuff, and understand it the way that our founding fathers did, but not only our founding fathers, but every layperson who read the Federalist Papers when they were in the papers, right? So,
this is a rhetorical question, and it's a little bit sassy and sarcastic, so please do not come at me, commenters. It's kind of in sarcasm, okay? Knowing what you just said about farmers back in the day, with our increase in technology, with farming equipment that has GPS and literally, like, you practically. I'm not a farmer. I've never been in a tractor. So, I'm generalizing. I'm summarizing, and it's in sarcasm, like I said. You practically punch in your route in the field, and I personally know some people who literally sit on their phone.
Yeah.
On Facebook, on the death scroll.
Yeah.
While their tractors is plugging along. What if they were using that time to listen to audiobooks about all this stuff? What if they had a Tuttle Twins book and it's not like you're going to hit a car out in a field.
You're not endangering anybody but yourself, maybe.
But don't you know that's what pilots does? They get their coordinates and they type in their coordinates. They're not flying the plane. They land the plane, but they're not flying the plane.
If I see a pilot reading the Constitution while his plane is on autopilot, you know what? I'm going to cheer him on. If he's not drinking while
he's probably not jabbed,
but
he's going to get there safely and not die on the way.
But you gotta understand, before they leave the ground, they get their coordinates.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they put the coordinates in.
Yeah.
And the plane literally flies itself according to the coordinates that they put in.
Yeah.
So they literally take off and land. That's it.
And there's two pilots, right? So
so they could even take turns if they needed to. I wouldn't mind if I was a pilot and that was a long, boring trip. I'd love it if my co-pilot just read from Frederick Bastiat's The Law.
But I would love to be a pilot and have somebody who think opposite of me. And that'll be some good debate time.
Oh, yeah. As long as you guys don't start tussling.
Because they can't go nowhere. You up in the air. Where you going?
You stuck with them.
Yeah.
But you're right. When we take some time, right? And some of these books I just showed is going to be on my nightstand so I can read. And then when I can't sleep, like the reason I'm dealing with setting the record straight with black and white American history in black and white is because it's Black History Month. I'm finna blow their brain with. I already know this stuff, but I just wanted to get it so
it's not about us knowing it. It's about helping get the information out so everyone knows it. Yeah.
It's just like Thursday night, I did a raw Black history.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, is that the one I hopped on to for a couple minutes about Margaret Sanger?
Yes. You guys.
I got to go back and watch that one. I missed it.
I haven't gone back and finished, but
it was
good from the little bit I got.
You guys gonna have to help me.
I think I was up all night with a sick baby that night, so I didn't really.
Well, I gave raw history because the history is not just slavery. Black Wall Street is part of history.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could have been on giving you snaps, I would have been, because oof, that's the stuff we need to be learning.
and a lot of people didn't know that uh, Black Wall Street happened May 31st and June 1st, 1921. And it happened in an area where blacks was it was one of the most wealthiest black communities in the country in 1921. Think about it.
Yeah.
They want to tell you, oh, we just struggled all our life. These folks was rich in 1921.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
So we talked about that. We talked about Margaret Singer. We talked about how they were sterilizing people in the 50s and 60s. 60,000 people got sterilized.
Yep.
We talked about I'm saying this because all of this, if they knew their rights.
Yep.
If they knew their right. We talked about the 40 years of giving that carrot called syphilis.
Oh my gosh, the Tuskegee Institute. Think about the person who founded the Tuskegee Institute and then what it was used for. It just devastates me every time I hear every time that topic comes up, because it's just like, you had this God-fearing man who comes in and wants to build this amazing educational center to lift people up out of poverty. They had to work for their room and board and their education. And then you get to the government taking over.
Yeah, the legacy that was left
just
behind.
Shattered. And it just, oh man, it hurts. It hurts.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep. And so, if we can empower people with the Constitution, history won't repeat itself.
And I have to say something just a little bit funny. I'm glad that we are telling people to read this, because it'll take us like 3 years to get through the Wisconsin Constitution with how we're going.
I know. And
it's great though. I love it because it's not just the Constitution that we're really trying to dive into, even though that's the foundation of it. Again, we are trying to build your knowledge base. We're trying to build our knowledge base and really pull the strings together that we've kind of let fly.
And I feel like today yes, it feels like actual, like, topic wise, we didn't cover a lot. But if you actually look at all the connections between the different puzzle pieces that we just made in today's episode, like, we actually covered, there's little ears, a bucket load of ground.
Yes. Knowledge is power. Look at this.
It really is.
Look at this.
It's beautiful.
Something I want to touch on quick while we're kind of on the topic of the 3 constitutions, including our Bible. As we're thinking about what church really means, and I'm going into definitions here, not the word that we use for church is not what the Bible originally intended. And the reason I'm bringing this up is when we're thinking about what we are establishing, when we're creating communities of us that are like-minded, faith-based individuals, and whether we consider ourselves like a ministry / church, if you actually go back to what church was very poorly translated from, it's ecclesia, which really means called out assembly. That's one option of
public square, public assembly.
Those who are called out.
A body of diplomat officials.
So literally ecclesia is like those set apart. And if we look in the context, then the word church really means house of the Lord. Well, that's not the same thing. And if you go into, I just typed it earlier to like Matthew 13:30 or something like that. What's the one where it says where 2 or more are gathered?
Oh, jeez. I just about knocked my whole bookshelf off trying to get one book.
Yeah. It's the verse that's where 2 or more are gathered. Like, there I am. Like, or there, whatever. There am I.
I might have it underlined.
You probably do. It's a common one. I might not have quoted the exact. I know it's in Matthew. I think it's 13.
He says, where there's 2 or 3 touching and agreeing, there I am in the midst.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with a church service because people is too lazy to show up.
Yeah.
That you hollering, oh, where's 2 or 3 of us? No, 2 and 3 touching and agreeing. He says that there I am. Why? Because I see oneness. You are in agreement. You have now become one.
Mhm.
One, you're one mind, one purpose, one heart. You speaking the same thing. Because even when Nehemiah went to go build, the Bible says they had a mind to work. So the people was one because they had a mind to work. Just like when
1320, by the way.
yeah,
1320.
just like they was building the Tower of Babylon, they was one language, one mindset, one purpose. And the Bible says God had to change their language, right? He had to mess up the language. So why? Because now you can't agree if I don't know what you're talking.
Mm-hmm.
See, like when we do a show, and that time y'all was talking about pumpkin pie, we stopped being one.
Nice try. Hey, as far as it is possible, try to live at peace with everyone, even people who don't like pumpkin pie.
Hey, we living in peace with you. It's just that we break peace when you try to force pumpkin pie on somebody.
I'm gonna trick you one of these times.
Huh?
I'm gonna trick you one of these times. I'm gonna make like a sweet potato pie, and then I'm gonna make. I think my mom is snoring. So I'm gonna make a sweet potato pie, and then I'm gonna make a pumpkin pie, and I'm gonna make you guess which one is which.
You can never do that. I can look at the texture and tell you which is which.
Mm-hmm. We'll see about that.
You forgetting that I am a cook and baker by trade. I know the texture.
Well, how would you know the texture of pumpkin if you don't do anything with pumpkin? Because you're
No, I have helped make it. I just don't eat it.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Just like as a cook, I know how to make hollandaise sauce.
I did just learn something new about you. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
I know how to make hollandaise sauce.
But check it out though. I don't eat it, so I had to get other people to taste it.
Ah.
Is it because you don't like it, or like just you can't wrap yourself around trying it?
Well, when you know how to make it, you don't want to eat it.
Is it because there's egg in it, like the raw egg or whatever in it, or something?
No.
It is cooked.
Oh,
hollandaise is cooked.
Yeah, but
so what's good about it?
it's really nothing but egg and butter
And lemon juice.
and lemon juice. But I mean,
It's really good. It's a lot of protein. It's
right. Give me my eggs, leave the butter and the lemon juice out. And
Don't you fry your egg in butter?
Some people even use Tabasco sauce in their hollandaise sauce.
I could see that.
Hold on, somebody's saying something to us. Let's see what they're saying. Oh, that's Rustin, y'all.
Each generation is like a teen in history. Is or I mean, yes, there's definitely that idea of kind of being egocentric. We think that the here and now is all there is. And so we think that somehow, without knowing how people did it in the past, we're just going to dump the archaic laws and principles and values, and we're going to go in a new progressive path because that's going to get us. The problem is when most people talk about progressive, they're talking about basically going down the wrong, like you took a path down the wrong direction. You went on a detour and you're like, okay, I just got to keep going forward because eventually I will get to the right path and it's going to be better than it ever has been in the past. No, the progressive is turning around and going, I went the wrong direction. I admit it. I own it. And we're going to go back and find the space, the spot that we left the correct path. And we're going to go back to that and fix it. That's when we talk about progressivism, it's literally a religion of seeing how far down the wrong path we can go, and hope somehow that it's
And-
going to form utopia.
And I think I have really dug into not attachment, but
Somebody like pumpkin pie with y'all.
yep. I've really dug into like gentle parenting, attachment parenting methods.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm so passionate about that is when things are punishment based, not discipline based, punishment based,
Mhm.
we end up moving in the opposite direction to avoid punishment.
Yeah.
So when we teach history from a punishment perspective, winner versus loser, and
Yep.
all of that versus learning lessons and well, what did they do wrong that led to this? Or, focusing on the lesson, not the winning versus losing and just the boring facts. That's where we start to rebel against, what was before.
You moms and y'all cute stuff. No, we're disciplined. Bam! This is how it goes. Don't you dare come out of that line. But
Yeah, no, that's punishment, and that's going to just
punishment.
teach out of fear, and that don't work.
well, actually, it worked for us because if you
But
would
you
have met,
said, here's the
Wait,
thing,
who was
it isn't though, because you said
who was
yourself
the-
you were a wild stallion. I'm pretty sure your mom
Yeah,
didn't raise you to be like that.
well, you have to understand the
You
stallion.
just were taught to not get caught.
But no. Actually, I was a stallion. I was a stallion with morals because it was installed in me. So you couldn't do too much. You feel guilty on some stuff because I give it to you this way. And when I was studying the kingdom,
I think
and
he's making excuses.
Uh-huh.
no, this is no excuse. I'm
I'm a
studying.
mom. I know. I've seen it.
Hold on. I'm gonna have to do like you guys. So Sarah had to pull out notebook. Let me pull out some notebooks. Okay. So when we see,
My
y'all,
cheeks are hurting.
y'all just messing with me. So watch this. When we talking about even in our family, in the kingdom of God, in our political arena, we have to have law. Because law is not there to punish you, it's there to protect you. Or it should be there to protect you.
The law is
Right?
there to prevent injustice.
Yes. So it's there to protect you. And so when you look at a country that has their law in order and you got good law, right? That's like the kingdom of heaven. You got good law. You do by right. But then when the law is starting to be tampered with,
Restraining you?
then you have what you see. People trying to leave Haiti, people trying to leave Cuba, people trying to leave Jamaica, people trying to leave all these countries in the Middle East. Why? Because the government law is no longer there to protect,
Yep.
as you would say, to punish.
And no, see,
No,
discipline and punishment are very much different. I was actually going to bring this up before you said that last part, and now it's even more relevant. When the Bible talks about the rod, using a rod, to guide our children, just like a shepherd guides, it was not to whip or beat. Shepherds, if you actually look, even at the county fair every single year, they use the rod to gently nudge and guide. Oh, you're going off trail. We're still going straight. Oh, here, we're going to turn here. It was to gently guide. It wasn't to beat.
But you got to remember, sometimes the shepherd had to break the sheep leg and carry that sheep for a while. And then when that leg healed, that sheep didn't do anything else.
That was in very extreme circumstances. It wasn't for the whole herd. It was
Not
for
the
that
whole
sheep
herd.
that kept getting to the edge of the cliff and trying to go over it, like deliberately walking into danger.
And that's what we're doing today, right? We
And
deliberately.
now it's after extreme attempts to gently guide first, not as a first resort.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it like that. I just love discipline. You call it punishment. I call it discipline. But then the Bible also said, God said, I chastise those that I love. And if I'm not chastising you, then you are a bastard. You're not mine.
Mhm.
So how is it that so many people who claim to be of God can do wicked things and never get a whooping?
Well, same
Then,
thing that we
then,
learned in
then they're not his. Because he said, I chastise those that I love.
But you also have the equal stories of the people who were beat as children, and it was called punishment, and they are criminals now. So, like, I mean, I think the balance is discipline with grace and discipline with love, and not the kind of love that says I have ownership over you and I have all the power and authority, and therefore I will use it against you. That's the type of discipline that we're talking about. That's punishment. That is, I'm going to put the fear of God into you. That's not how the fear of God works. The fear of God is when you train up a child into the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. He learns by modeling, because I like, you have people who are like, you will respect me. I don't have to respect you because I'm your parent, but you will respect me. Well, where does a
teach
child
by do as I say, not as I do kind of tactic,
and that
that does
concept
not
doesn't work, because the whole
Children
concept
are
is
monkey see, monkey do.
the child comes into the world and sees how their parents live and learn from that model, because that's all they've got at the beginning. Right
Which
now
is
they may
why
go in.
children that get hit at home end up being, hitting others, their classmates, or even hitting their teachers when they're very young, thinking that, oh, well, I got hit because I misbehaved, I can hit others. But then I get hit again because I was naughty. Hitting does not equal discipline. It just teaches, if I do something, I need to be scared of being in trouble, and it teaches kids to walk on eggshells, or that they get to do the same thing to others.
Or learn how to
it all
get better at
depends.
avoiding punishment, right?
It all depends on,
I will tell you, I started with the punishment method with my children because that was what I grew up with. I didn't know any better. And it nearly destroyed my family because I could not control my anger. I could not control myself. If I cannot have self-control, then how can I teach my children self-control, right? Because I was always disciplining, punishing from a state of reaction to the situation without going into what happened, really diving into what is this actually a rebellious move, or is this them testing their boundaries and seeing what limits they have, right? I did not logic and reason my way through training my children.
Just realizing that they may not have the tools yet to handle a situation.
Exactly. And so now
I'm still working on undoing this with my own son because of situations prior to my divorce. And that divorce happened, it was official in 2018, and I left in 2017. Now, some stuff happens, obviously, when I'm not present, and did prior to the end of things, but I'm still working on undoing the damage that was caused by that corporal punishment. And I can see the leaps and bounds that
and it's not taking discipline out of the mix. It's absolutely not. It's coming from a place of one reason and then also love and grace over our children, and doing what how do I want to put this? I will tell you that since Jake and I took on this new type of discipline, new type of dealing with issues and helping our kids work through these problems and things, my kids respect me, but they do not worship. They're not afraid of me, and they do not worship me. I am not God to them, but I am a model. I'm an ambassador for them. So I point them to Christ, and it humbled me in the sense of, now,
and we all know their kids are freaking awesome in public.
Listen, all I know is, give me the bat, the chains, the whip, the.
Now he's just trying to start something.
No. On that note, it is 8:30. We should go to bed.
I know, right?
Yep, we're 2 hours in.
But I get what you guys saying, and the thing about it is, I put fear in my children, but not fear of being afraid of me, of reverence and respecting me. Because all I have to say is to my son, you're about to cross the line. That's all I got to say. Because like you said, they try to test the boundary. They want to see how far they can go. So all you got to do is say, you know what? You're about to cross the line. I don't think you want to cross that line. You know, you're testing me. In other words, you know what you cannot do. So I don't have to sit down and write a book and say, this is what you can't do. They already know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even with my son now, like, when he fusses about having to go to school, now, I'm not going to go into the circumstances that's causing him to fuss, but because I recognize those and I've given him that safe space to really dig into and express where those frustrations are coming from, even though we've hashed that out, when he starts getting really fussy about heading to school, I'm like, all right, bud, you have a choice. We can continue to argue and fuss all the way to school, and you're still going to have to go. Or we can work together, have some fun while we get ready for school, and have a good time until you have to go. Your choice. We can turn this around. Do you want to turn this around, or do you want to keep arguing and fussing? Your choice. I'm okay with either one. And
well, see,
9 times out of 10,
I'm like
right around.
I'm like this. I'm like this. When it comes to school, you don't have a choice. If you're having a problem, if you're having a problem in the school, you better talk to me. Let's deal with it. But you're not gonna sit there and say, "Oh, I don't feel like." No, you're gonna
right. And I mean, I'm the same. Like, there is a particular situation revolving around school that he and I are already aware of that I am working on. I can't go into too many details here.
Have you seen the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing, son. You got two choices: take the red pill or the blue pill. But you're going to school. No, I'm joking. Let me stop.
But it's like I mean, I help him process those frustrations and make a choice.
Yeah.
You know, I can play this frustration game.
But you know okay with it. A lot of times when you go back and like you say, you go back and you look at things of the way you was raised and how things was done. You know, a lot of times we was taught with a slave mentality, whether you was black or white, you was taught with that slave mentality. Our children are supposed to be seen and not heard.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. I so enjoy when we're at the dinner table and just discussing and talking. We talk, you know, kingdom citizenship. We talk politics. We talk art. We talk what was our day like. And it's just, and sometimes at midnight, my daughter will come in and she'll be like, Mom, I've got some questions. And I give up sleep for that because that is so worth it to me. And I've got my kids, I have my kids' hearts. And I think that's where it comes from. I discipline them, but I have their hearts.
And that's how it's supposed to be. But, you know, I mean, people just took it. You were supposed to be seen and not heard. So you didn't even know what was going on in your kid's life. You wouldn't have the conversations. Now, before my son was born, me and my daughters be talking, and they start talking stuff, and I'd be like, I don't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear it. Because now they so open, they talk to me. You know, I don't want to hear about your monthly. I don't want it, but they talk to me about stuff like that. And I'm like, no.
So did I make you uncomfortable a little while ago when I said I was promotional?
Oh, never. Not with daughters, never.
He's used to it by now.
But the thing about it is, I was glad that they was able to talk to me. Like me,
and that's the component. Especially as a dad.
Yeah, I was always able to talk to my mom about anything. And I teach my son, we can talk about anything, just don't lie.
Yeah.
We can talk about anything, no matter how bad it is or not. Just don't lie to me. Because when you lie to me, that's when there's a problem.
You break relationship. That's the biggest thing that I tell my kids. Even if I don't find out, which it's very difficult for me not to find out.
I mean, we do live in a small community.
Yes. And I said, even if I never found out, you are still answerable to God for what you say and what you do. And if your actions are not aligned with your words or vice versa, you will be found out. And so, that is, it's definitely, it's pointing them. I think over and over, it's like, I have their hearts so I can point their hearts to God. Right.
Yep. very fitting, like another one of the Discovery Mountain episodes my son and I were listening to. The mom and son in the episode were running errands, and the mom realized the last store overpaid her by 20 cents. 20 cents.
Yep.
And the son was like, come on, mom, it's just 20 cents. Like, no big deal. Let's just go on with our day. And she helped him realize that whether it's 20 cents, $20, or $200,
Yeah.
it's still stealing. And if you can't be trusted with 20 cents, why should anyone think they can trust you with $20 or $200?
Yep.
You know, God sees, and you made exactly the same point you just made.
Yep.
Like, if you cannot be trusted with the small things, how can you be trusted with the big things?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's
And then,
again, that brings us right back to the self-responsibility.
Yep, and I was going to say, and that's why we need to study what we're studying, because what seems small and insignificant, and why bother studying this stuff? Because someday, and I am saying someday, this will happen. It's not a matter of if anymore. It's a
Yep.
matter of when.
Yep.
Someday, when this happens to each of us, we
Mhm.
need to know how we're going to answer that door, how we're going to talk to that judge, and what we're going to say.
Yep.
Look, I'm gonna tell
There's
the
no
judge.
ifs anymore.
I'm gonna
Yep.
tell the judge, find me.
I'd like
Yeah.
to see how far
He's
that
an
gets you.
agitator. He's an agitator.
Y'all
Yeah.
know I keep trying to tell y'all. Y'all know I ain't got no sense.
Oh, we love your passion, Dr. King.
And so when we got to stand up for what's right,
Mhm.
you know, that's just me.
It's a David thing, I swear. My mentor, David, too.
Same thing.
Well, see, by my name being King David, you know, it's even just take it to a whole new level.
Well, it's the whole
Now I
David and
think
Goliath
he's-
and fighting the giants. I think it's
I
just
know
they're
it's
built-
just,
they're built for that sort of stature.
and we go looking for a giant. We don't wait till it comes.
Right.
You know, so I think we're gonna do our final remarks because this little one just let me know. Look, see, she let me
Yep.
know.
It is bedtime. Girl, I agree.
You ready to go watch TV and go to bed? Okay. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Hi.
She ain't gonna do it. Just like a woman, stubborn, ain't gonna do it. So let's do our final remarks. We're gonna start with you, Amber.
All right. Tonight, I feel like we really hit home on why self-responsibility is such an important topic right now. Like I said, it's no longer a matter of if this stuff could happen. It's a matter of when.
Mhm.
And no longer can we say this is not affecting us, so I'm not going to bother. The last 3 years showed us that. And it is time. So one question I'm going to leave you guys with that I heard on a motivating call earlier this week is consider what was more important. What was more important this week than sitting down for 5, 10, 15 minutes a day and reading Article 1 of the state constitution? What was more important than taking 5, 10, 15 minutes reading your Bible? And this is not to come from a place of judgment and guilt. Just be open with yourself. Like, maybe you were sick. That is a very valid reason to choose rest, for instance.
Mhm.
But it's a time to make a choice. If you are all about pursuing your God-given purpose and helping serve others, helping retain and defend and protect your God-given rights, your liberties,
Mhm.
it's really important to look at what you chose that was more important than doing that. And doing that means studying, means knowing your papers, knowing your history like the back of your hand.
Mhm.
So that's why tonight was so important, why we connected all these different puzzle pieces so you could get this grand picture of why original intent was so important in context of today and how it applies to us.
Yep.
So hope that was encouraging and can't wait to see you guys next week.
Okay, I'm gonna give a 2 for today. I'm giving 2 quotes because they were both so good. I couldn't pick between them, and they both are so relevant to our conversation today. So I'm starting with Thomas Jefferson because he's my favorite. He says, lay down true principles and adhere to them inflexibly. Do not be frightened into their surrender. And then, where do you get those true principles from? Sir Walter Scott says, all men who have turned out worth anything have had the chief hand in their own education. So, yeah, so we have to have foundational principles. We have to have the values and principles that built this universe, and that was God's values and principles. We have to have a kingdom mindset, and we have to address worldviews and world ideologies from that kingdom mindset. The only way we can do that is to study our constitutions. We have 3 of them. We have the Bible, we have the state constitution, and we have our federal constitution. And these have been established with those God-given principles in mind. And so in order to understand them and know them, we have to know these constitutions backwards and forwards, and take notes on them and join these study groups with us, and read for yourself and find the resources you need. We post resources, we talk about resources, but the work is in your hands. We can give you basically what do you call it, Dr. King? We can give you the salt block, and then you got to go find the water. So
The salt pill.
yeah, we'll give you the salt pill and you got to go find the water. So yeah, so there is a plethora of resources out there, but always return to those basic first principles, those basic God-given foundational principles that are going to build a freedom shift in our communities, in our families, and point us back to the king of the universal kingdom, because that is where we're going to find freedom and hope and a reason. So yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. We had a lot of fun.
All right, mine is going to be, and for the record, this is the last time y'all gonna see me in a suit jacket and tie. But my quote is coming from out of this other constitution, which is the Word of God, Article Hosea, subsection 4.
I love it.
It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yep.
Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. One of the things that we have to understand is it's not that knowledge is not out here. We're rejecting knowledge because of the things that people have told us.
Yep.
For example, people holler, we are in a democracy. We are in a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And if you don't know what a constitutional republic is, then you're going to be shouting like the rest of them. This is what democracy looked like. And so it's important that you get the knowledge that we sitting here sharing, and you look it up. We show you all kind of books that you can just go get. And if you go to Thrift Book, what is it, thriftbook.com?
Yep, thriftbooks.com.
Who is now one of my new pimps. You gonna come say goodbye? Yeah, they pimping me.
Yeah,
So,
your Wild Stallion days on Thrift Books. That's a good one.
I know. So, and if you don't want to learn, come right here, Leah. If you don't want to learn it for yourself, then learn it for your babies.
Amen.
So that way you'll know how to fight for them if you understood your right. So we encourage you guys, bring a notebook. We always putting up links where you can go to and learn for yourself. Because here's the thing about it. You are a victim of only 3 things. You're a victim of your own ignorance. You're a victim of your own laziness. Yep. Here's that personal responsibility again. And you're ignorant of your and you're a victim of your own choice.
Yep.
So you're a victim of your choice, you're a victim of your laziness, and you're a victim of your own ignorance.
Yep.
It's no reason you should not know what's going on. So we encourage you guys, buy books, read the books. Don't just buy them and set them up like I'm finna do, but buy them and read them. But no, I'm finna read all of these. And so you will know, because if you never understood the why,
A quiz afterwards.
yes, I figure that. But if you never understand the whys, you'll never know how to fix anything. So, we encourage you guys to read. Yeah, we have fun while we teaching. That's just how we are. We ain't got no sense. We just love it. And so you guys, we just want to encourage you guys to get involved, get some teaching, give us a call. You inbox us. We all on Facebook. Inbox us. If you prideful and you don't want nobody to know you don't know, then inbox us. We won't tell on you. We'll just help you. So we thank you guys for being with us. And we're going to, hold on, let me set it up before I say that. And we're going to say goodnight because it's been almost 3 hours and it's Amber's fault. So that's who we blaming tonight. We're blaming Amber. So we love you guys.
The blame.
See, we're blaming you tonight because you are AKA Mercy. So you're going to show us some mercy.
Oh, for blaming me?
Okay.
So we think
You got a fan there.
Let's see.
I absolve myself of any affiliation with Dr. King.
I'll take all the blame. I keep telling people I'm contagious. They don't listen.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, we keep coming back every week.
I know, right?
Yes.
Every
It's
week.
fun. I look forward to this.
Same here.
You know what I do? I tell people, fuss at me. And they be like, why? You would know, fuss at me. So they fuss at me. So when we do a show and people start saying other stuff, it don't bother me. Because that's my training. You got to toughen up your skin.
Yep.
Because what we doing, you can't have soft skin with what we're doing.
I learned that pretty quick into it.
So, but no, we really thank everybody. And we ask you guys to join us next Saturday, 6:30. The Queen won't, I don't know. The Queen might be here. She might not be here, but I got to bring her a playmate if she comes.
I got one in the background.
Oh, yeah. So we thank everybody. And we want to say good night to each and every one.
Good night.
Until next time.